Hey everyone, welcome back. So you're looking to really take your English to that next level,
Sure.
right?
And you want to do it the smart way.
Exactly. No one wants to get bogged down with just tons and tons of new information all at once?
Yeah, got to be smart about it.
Okay, so today we're going deep. We're doing a deep dive into something that can be super helpful for your English, and it might surprise you. We're talking books, folks.
Yeah, books. Now I know what you might be thinking.
You're thinking okay, sure, reading, but which books? And how am I supposed to understand everything?
Yeah, those are good questions. And really, the whole how to understand thing is probably even more important than just picking any old book.
Totally. So that's what we're tackling today, right here in this deep dive. How can you actually learn English effectively by reading books? And we've got some personalized recommendations too, depending on your level.
Right, because it's different for everyone, isn't it?
100%. Now, to help us out with all this, we've been digging into this awesome podcast called Speak Fluent. They had some really great insights.
Yeah, they did.
So, first things first. Why are books such a good way to level up your English? What's the big deal?
Well, the cool thing about reading is it makes your brain work with the language in a
Yeah.
bunch of different ways. Like, it's not just passively seeing words on a page.
Right. You're actively processing them.
Exactly. So when you're reading a book in English, you're going to come across new vocabulary all the time.
All the time, yeah.
But here's the key. You see those words in context, in a real sentence, in a real situation. That helps your brain make a much stronger connection to the word. It's way better than just memorizing a list.
Right. It's like your brain's going, oh, okay, I get it now. This is how you use this word.
That's exactly it. It's not just a word floating out there on its own.
Yeah. Like you can see the word elated in a dictionary and learn that it means super happy. But when you see it in a sentence,
Right? Like, she felt utterly elated when she got that surprise promotion.
suddenly it clicks, right? You get a much deeper sense of what elated really means because of the whole situation, the other words around it?
Totally. And it's not just about vocabulary, is it?
No, it's not. What about grammar?
Ah, yes. Reading immerses you in the natural flow of English grammar. You see how sentences are built, how verbs change depending on the tense.
Past, present, future, all that.
Exactly. You see how those little but important words like prepositions are actually used. It's like getting a front row seat to how native speakers put all the pieces of language together.
It's like learning by osmosis almost. You're just absorbing it without even realizing it sometimes.
It's quite different from just studying grammar rules from a textbook, isn't it?
Yeah, where it can feel kind of abstract and disconnected from real life.
Exactly. Books give you that real-life context, which is so important. And here's the thing. The more you read in English, the more something pretty amazing starts to happen in your brain.
Oh, tell me about this.
You start to think in English.
Whoa, hold on. So you're not translating everything back into your first language in your head anymore?
That's right. You begin to understand the meaning of things directly in English. It's like your brain is rewiring itself, creating those direct pathways between English words and their meanings.
So it's like bypassing that extra step of translation, which can be slow and clunky.
Exactly. And that's a game changer for your fluency. Your comprehension speeds up, and it builds a really strong foundation for when you want to start speaking more confidently.
It's like you're becoming more and more comfortable living in the English language world.
That's a great way to put it. And don't underestimate the confidence boost you get when you finish a book in English and realize you actually understood it.
Yeah, that feeling is amazing. It's like, I did that.
It's a real accomplishment.
Yeah.
Plus, let's not forget that reading is fun.
Right. You get to escape into different worlds, experience different stories, and learn about new things.
That enjoyment is so important for learning. When you're having fun, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
Not at all. It's so much better than just drilling vocabulary lists, which can get old pretty fast.
Exactly. And like we said, books expose you to how native speakers actually use the language in all kinds of real-life situations, which is so valuable.
And one of the best things about books is they're so patient.
Oh, absolutely. There's no pressure, is there?
No, you can take your time, reread sections as many times as you need, look up words you don't know, you know.
Exactly. You're in control of the pace, which is so important when you're learning something new.
Okay, so we're all on board with the power of reading. But now comes the big question.
I know it's coming.
The question everyone's thinking. What books should I actually be reading?
Right, because not all books are created equal when it comes to learning English.
So how do we figure out what books are right for us?
Well, the key is to choose books that match your current level of English. If you jump into something too difficult, It can be really discouraging.
Yeah, you might just feel lost and give up.
And, on the other hand, if you choose something that's too easy, you won't learn much new.
So let's break it down. What are some good recommendations for beginners, intermediate learners, and advanced learners?
Sounds like a plan. Let's start with the beginners.
Perfect. So someone who's just starting out on their English journey, what kind of books should they look for?
At this stage, simplicity is key. You want books with short sentences, basic vocabulary that's repeated often, and clear storylines that are easy to follow.
Okay, that makes sense. And actually, the Speak Fluent podcast had some great suggestions here. One was The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss.
Ah, classic. Now, that might seem like a really simple choice, but there's a lot of value in it for English learners.
Yeah, it's not just a kid's book. What makes it so good?
Dr. Seuss is a master of rhythm and rhyme, which is fantastic for pronunciation.
You're really getting a feel for how English sounds and how to emphasize different parts of words.
Exactly. Plus, the vocabulary is super basic, the verbs are simple, and the repetition really helps those words stick in your memory.
And the pictures. Let's not forget the pictures.
Oh, they're so helpful for beginners because they give you that visual context. You can see what's happening in the story even if you don't understand every single word.
Another suggestion from the podcast was Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney.
Ah, yeah. Now, that's a step up in terms of length and complexity from Dr. Seuss.
It feels like a bit more of a grown-up book.
It is, but it still uses fairly simple language and focuses on everyday vocabulary. Plus, the humor is really engaging, and the diary format means you get these shorter chunks of text to work with, which can be less intimidating.
And it's got illustrations, too, which is always a plus.
Always helpful. And speaking of things that are helpful, for beginners who are really looking for books specifically designed for language learners,
Yeah, what about them?
there's a whole category called graded readers.
Graded readers, okay. Tell me more.
These are books that have been specially written or adapted for different levels of English. So you've got publishers like Penguin Readers and Oxford Bookworms who are really good at this.
And how do you know which level to choose?
They usually use a system like A1, A2, B1, and so on. These levels actually line up with an international standard for language proficiency.
So you can be pretty confident that you're choosing a book that's right for your current level.
Exactly. Graded readers are a fantastic way to build confidence as you're starting out, and then gradually work your way up to more challenging books.
Sounds like a great system. All right, let's move on to intermediate learners. So these are people who've got a good grasp of the basics, but want to keep growing their vocabulary and tackle more complex stories.
Right, they're ready for the next challenge.
What kind of books are we talking about here?
At this level, you're looking for books with more complex sentences, maybe a wider range of vocabulary, but the language is still generally clear and easy to understand.
Okay, and what did Speak Fluent recommend for this level?
They had a few good ones. One was Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
Another children's book, but it feels like a more substantial read than, say, The Cat in the Hat.
It is. The language is beautiful and rich, but it's still very clear.
So you're getting a good dose of more advanced vocabulary and sentence structures.
But the story itself is still very heartwarming and easy to follow.
They also recommended The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon.
Oh, that's a great one. The narrative style is really simple and direct, even though the main character is talking about some pretty complex ideas.
So it's accessible, but it's still making you think.
Exactly. And another great option for intermediate learners who want to try out different writing styles.
I'm listening.
Short story collections.
Ah, that's a good idea. Why short stories?
Well, they give you exposure to a lot of different authors in a shorter format.
So you're not committing to a whole novel.
Right. And you get to see how different writers use language, you get a wider range of vocabulary, and you're exposed to different themes and genres.
The podcast mentioned Roald Dahl and O. Henry as good options.
They are. Both are known for their humor and their really engaging writing styles.
Okay, on to the big leagues. Advanced learners.
This is where things get really interesting.
These are people who are already quite fluent, right?
Yeah, they can understand and speak English pretty well.
So what are they looking for in a book?
They're looking for a real challenge. They want complex plots, well-developed characters, and rich, nuanced vocabulary.
So they're ready for the full-on literary experience.
That's right. They're not afraid of idioms, cultural references, or more sophisticated writing techniques.
And Speak Fluent came through with some great recommendations here, too. They mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
A classic of American literature. And for good reason.
It's a powerful and moving story.
And the language is sophisticated. It's got subtle meanings, a strong sense of voice. It's really a master class in writing.
So you're getting a deep dive into American culture and history, too.
Definitely. It's a book that stays with you long after you finish it.
Another one they mentioned was 1984 by George Orwell.
Now that's a challenging read, both in terms of the language and the themes.
It's not exactly a light and fluffy beach read.
No, it's pretty intense. But it's incredibly rewarding for advanced learners.
How so?
Orwell's writing is so precise and thought-provoking. The book is full of vocabulary related to social and political ideas, which can be very useful.
It's making you think about big issues.
Absolutely. And the final recommendation for advanced learners was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger.
That one's got a really distinctive voice, doesn't it?
It does. It's famous for its natural conversational style, its use of slang and informal expressions.
So you're getting a taste of how real people actually talk.
It's a great contrast to the more formal language you might find in some other books.
Okay, so we've got some fantastic book recommendations for all levels. But just having the right book isn't enough, is it?
No, it's not. You need to know how to read it effectively if you really want to make the most of it for your English learning.
So what are some good strategies? How do we become more active readers?
That's the key. Active reading. It's about engaging with the text in a thoughtful and deliberate way, not just passively letting the words wash over you.
And Speak Fluent had some good advice here, too. They talked about choosing the right format.
Yeah, that can make a big difference.
So physical books, ebooks, audiobooks, what are the pros and cons?
Well, physical books are great if you like that tactile experience. You can underline, you can write notes in the margins. It's a very hands-on way to engage with the text.
And what about ebooks?
Ebooks are super convenient. You've got the dictionary right there, so you can quickly look up words without interrupting your flow too much.
Yeah, I love that feature.
And then there's audiobooks.
Ah, yes, audiobooks.
Combining an audiobook with the text, either physical or digital, can be really powerful.
How so?
It engages both your hearing and your sight. So you're getting pronunciation practice, you're seeing the words, you're hearing them. It's like a multisensory learning experience.
It's like supercharging your learning.
Exactly. And another great tip from the podcast was to preview the book before you even start reading it properly.
Previewing, okay, what does that involve?
It's just a quick scan to get your brain ready for what you're about to read. Look at the back cover, read the summary, maybe glance at the chapter titles.
It's like getting a little sneak peek.
Exactly.
Wow.
Gives you a sense of the story, the main ideas, the writer's style.
And you're more likely to understand and remember what you read if you have that context.
Absolutely. And when you're actually reading, remember to break it down into smaller chunks.
Yeah, don't try to read a whole book in one sitting.
Right. Trying to read too much at once can actually be counterproductive. You get tired, your brain gets overloaded, and you end up absorbing less.
So what's a good approach?
Maybe read for 10-15 minutes at a time, and then take a moment to reflect on what you've just read.
Summarize it in your head. Maybe
Right.
even say it out loud in English.
That's a great way to solidify your understanding. And when you come across words you don't know,
Which is going to happen.
it's inevitable. Don't stop reading every single time to look it up.
Yeah, that would get really frustrating.
Just make a note of the word, underline it or highlight it, and keep going. You can always look it up later.
And often you can figure out the meaning from the context anyway.
Right. You don't always need a dictionary. But then, once you've finished reading, it's time to tackle those new words.
And this is where the vocabulary journal comes in.
It's your secret weapon for learning new words.
So how do we use it effectively?
For each word, write it down. Write down the sentence you found it in, and look up the definition.
And write that down too.
Yes. But here's the important part. Try to write your own sentence using that new word.
So you're not just passively copying the definition, you're actively using the word yourself.
Exactly. That helps it stick in your memory. And don't forget to review your vocabulary journal regularly.
Maybe once a week.
That's a good schedule. Repetition is key to remembering new vocabulary.
And another tip from Speak Fluent was reading aloud,
It might feel a little strange at first, but it's so beneficial.
especially if you don't have anyone to practice speaking with.
It's great for pronunciation, intonation, rhythm. It forces you to physically say the words, which can be really helpful.
And finally, summarizing.
This is a powerful technique for really making sure you understand what you've read.
And it can be done in a few different ways.
You can write a summary, you can say it out loud, you can even just think about it in your head.
The key is to put the information into your own words.
Exactly. You're taking the author's ideas and explaining them in a way that makes sense to you.
And that's how you know you've really understood it. Okay, so we've talked about how to read effectively, but reading isn't just about improving your reading skills, is it?
No, it's not. It can have a huge impact on your speaking skills, too.
So how do we take all that reading practice and turn it into speaking confidence?
Well, Speak Fluent had some great ideas here. One was role-playing dialogues from books.
Ah, interesting. So you're pretending to be the characters.
Exactly. You're using the exact language that the author has written, so you're getting a feel for how natural conversations flow.
And it's a fun way to practice different accents and tones of voice.
It is. It's like acting out a scene from a play.
Yeah.
And if you have a language partner, reading conversations aloud together is another fantastic way to practice.
You can get feedback on your pronunciation. You can ask each other questions if you're not sure about something.
It's a very interactive way to learn. And even if you don't have a language partner, you can still get feedback by recording yourself reading.
Yeah, listening back to your own voice can be a little cringeworthy at first.
It can be. But it's also really insightful. You can hear where your pronunciation needs work if you're speaking too fast or too slow.
It's like having your own personal speech coach.
Exactly. And another great speaking exercise is to try to retell parts of the story or summarize paragraphs in your own words.
So you're not just reading, you're actively producing language.
Right. You're taking the information in, processing it, and then expressing it using your own vocabulary and grammar.
It's a great way to build fluency and confidence. And what about for people who want to connect with other learners?
Joining a book club or an online reading group can be a really fun and rewarding way to practice speaking.
You can talk about the books you've read, share your thoughts and opinions.
And it's in a supportive environment, so you don't have to feel self-conscious.
And Speak Fluent even mentioned discussing books with AI language models like ChatGPT.
That's a really interesting idea. It's not the same as talking to a real person, of course.
But it can be a good way to practice expressing yourself in English without feeling judged.
Exactly. You can ask questions, you can get feedback on your grammar and vocabulary. It's a low-pressure way to practice.
Okay, now let's make this even more relevant to you personally. The podcast really stressed the importance of choosing books that align with your interests.
It makes a huge difference.
So why is that so important?
Well, when you're reading about something you're genuinely interested in, you're much more likely to stay engaged.
You're not forcing yourself to read something you find boring.
Exactly. And when you're enjoying what you're reading, you're more likely to absorb the language and remember it.
Plus, you're naturally expanding your vocabulary in areas that are relevant to you.
Whether it's for work, for hobbies, for your personal interests.
So let's talk about some specific genres. What if you're a romance fan?
Speak Fluent, recommended Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell for intermediate learners.
It's a contemporary romance with relatable characters and modern language.
And for advanced learners who love romance, they suggested Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
A classic for a reason. It's got beautiful language, complex characters, and it explores timeless themes. What about adventure lovers?
The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien and The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins were their top picks.
Both take you on exciting journeys, right?
They do, and they're full of descriptive language and action-packed scenes.
For mystery fans, they recommended Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle and Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn.
Sherlock Holmes is a classic for a reason. The plots are intricate, the language is engaging, and it's a great introduction to British culture.
And Gone Girl is a more modern thriller with a very twisty storyline.
It's definitely a page-turner, but the language can be quite challenging.
For those interested in business English, they recommended Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
These are both great for learning vocabulary related to the workplace, leadership, and personal development.
So no matter what you're into, there's a book out there for you.
And that's really the key message here. Find something you enjoy reading, and the learning will happen naturally.
Absolutely. All right, last but not least, let's talk about building a consistent reading habit.
This is where a lot of people struggle.
We've all been there.
But the truth is, consistency is key to language learning. Reading a little bit every day is much more effective than trying to cram in a whole book every now and then.
So how do we make it happen? How do we build that habit?
Start small. Set a daily goal that feels achievable, even if it's just reading one page or for 10 minutes.
Don't overwhelm yourself.
Exactly. And try to read at the same time each day. Make it part of your routine.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. And track your progress. Use an app, a journal, whatever works for you.
It's encouraging to see how much you've accomplished.
And don't forget to reward yourself when you reach milestones.
A little treat can go a long way.
It can. And here's a really important piece of advice. Don't worry if you don't understand every single word.
That's so reassuring.
It's about progress, not perfection. Focus on gradually improving your understanding, and don't get discouraged if you stumble along the way.
So there you have it. Reading books is a fantastic way to improve your English.
It's effective, it's enjoyable, and it's accessible to everyone.
No matter what your level is, there's a book out there waiting for you.
So find your perfect book, start reading, and watch your English skills soar.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about how reading can help you develop empathy and understanding for people from different cultures and backgrounds.
It's like stepping into someone else's shoes, seeing the world through their eyes.
It can broaden your horizons in ways you never imagined.
And that's a beautiful thing. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Happy reading.
See you next time.